All right, everyone, let's get started. Before we jump into the webinar, a couple of quick hygiene questions. I hope you guys can hear me okay and you can see the screen okay. Just type yes in the chat box if you can see the screen and you can hear me okay. Okay, so I'm getting a few yeses, a lot more yeses. All right, awesome. All right. So the duration of the webinar is going to be 1 hour. All right, it's going to be a mix of me presenting some content, sharing some new things that are happening in the FSSAI space. There are some new things happening in the corporate space. And the most interesting part is actually going to be the questions that you guys are going to be asking me, and all of us learning something new together. All right, so this is going to be interactive. We will be having a long Q&A at the end, but what I actually prefer whenever I do these presentations is actually to have a live Q&A. What that means is the slide you're on, if you face any issue, just type it in the chat box or type it in the Q&A box and I will address it. In case I cannot address all the questions live, I will definitely get them at the end. And if I can't address them then I'll definitely email you guys about it whenever we get the chance. All right. So the basic hygiene things out of the way. 1 second, this load. All right. So a quick introduction about myself. My name is Ashwin Bhadri. I'm the CEO of Equinox Labs. I am an international speaker on food safety, FSSAI, especially when it comes to corporates and food businesses. I help companies devise their EHS strategy, facility management strategies, and more importantly, the food safety strategies. I've worked with more than about 500 companies across India to help them set up the internal food safety standards, especially on a larger scale, like when they're doing a pan-India, presence, and they want to set up food safety standards and help them with that. What is not mentioned in the slide is I do a lot of work with FSSAI directly. I sit on 6 out of the 12 panels. I help them structure the law, making it a little bit more customer friendly wherever possible. And what we're going to be talking about today, the Orange Book. I'm actually one of the authors of the Orange Book as well, right? So I have a little bit of the understanding of why it was set up and what is the main intent behind it, right? So do connect with me on the last page. I'll give you some contact information. I'm available on LinkedIn. I'm very, 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 I use LinkedIn maybe half an hour, 1 hour a day, maybe a little too much. Probably, instead of using Facebook, I use LinkedIn more as a socializing tool. So in case you ever want to connect, you can use LinkedIn or email. That's the best way to reach me. Right. So today's webinar is actually going to talk about the things that are on your screen. I'm going to introduce the concept of the Orange Book, which is by FSSAI, and we're going to run through what are the different things that the Orange Book is introducing, some of the things you're already doing, some of the things that you may not be doing. So I will let you know what you need to be doing and why FSSAI has actually set this whole thing out. Right. So the Orange Book actually, that's actually the cover of the Orange Book. It's a guide for safe and nutritious food in the workplace. So let me step back a couple of steps and give you the context of this book. So a couple of years ago, FSSAI as an act completed 10 years, right? So as an act, it was launched in 2006. So in 2016, it completed 10 years. And they wanted to launch 10 new initiatives to reach the different parts of the food world. Like when we say food, we obviously think of restaurants, we think of food that's manufactured, but the food is also served at so many different places, like temples, in schools, in hospitals, in education institutions, in corporates, and at home and in roadside vendors, and so many different places, right? So FSS actually launched 10 different initiatives to reach where the food is being used, and obviously the large one of that was the corporate workspace. This was probably the last one to be launched. I mean, they announced this 2 years ago, but it was formally launched last month. And the reason for that is corporate is actually a little bit more complex than some of the other places because you have multiple vendors. Some of the food is cooked on site, some is cooked off site, and so on and so forth, right? And it runs 24/7. And there's a principal employer, there is a vendor caterer. So it did get a little complex for them. So they took a lot of time to make a comprehensive document, right? Which they finally launched as the Orange Book. So it comes under the umbrella of SNF at workplace. SNF stands for Safe and Nutritious Food at Workplace. The idea is if you eat safe food and you eat the right food while you're at work, you will be contributing better to the company and to the society and to the country. Right? So the safe and nutritious food at the workplace means it's the responsibility of the employee employer, and the food caterer, all three of them together. So the book also talks about not just the employer and the caterer, but also the employee, right? So the Orange Book basically is it lays down food safety and wellness guidelines for corporates. Now, this is actually the document. If you when I go through, you'll understand goes actually beyond food safety. It also starts looking at wellness. To give you a little bit more context to this, before FSSAI was launched, there was a law called PFA, Prevention of Food Adulteration, which is, I think, a 50, 60-year-old law, probably what we got from the Britishers, when they left India. They'd probably written this PFA Act, which was Prevention of Food Adulteration. So the Act actually focused only on how do you prevent adulteration. It didn't talk about food safety, it didn't talk about wellness, it didn't talk about nutrition. The Act was purely focused on how do you prevent adulteration. The big change in FSSAI is they moved adulteration, obviously the most basic step, but they moved above it into food safety. And with the Orange Book, they're also now talking about wellness, which I think is the highest, in the pyramid of health and wellness and food safety. Wellness is the most this thing on top because it goes above and beyond food safety as well, right? So what are the different sections and what are the things that they're introducing? So the Orange Book introduces the concept of health and wellness coordinator, right? And they also talk about food safety supervisor. Now, food safety supervisor as a concept has been around actually for over a year. It applies to corporates, but also applies to all different food establishments across India. So any FBO, and when I say FBO, I mean food business operator. That means including a caterer, a restaurant, a bakery, a five-star, to even the smallest of smallest food piece, right? So every FBO should have one food safety supervisor who's trained for every 25 food handlers which are working there. Let me say that sentence one more time. So for every 25 food handlers which are working there, you need to have one food safety supervisor who's trained under the FOSTAC program. FOSTAC stands for Food Safety Training and Certification. So the story behind how FOSTAC was born is our current CEO of FSSAI, Mr. Pawan Agarwal. He had gone on a tour, I think, to US and Singapore and a couple other countries. And when he came back, he was very, very keen on bringing a concept called Serve Safe to India. The concept of Serve Safe, especially in the US, is every single food handler who works in the QSR chain or in the restaurant, this thing in live food, needs to undergo a certification called Serve Safe. It's an online training. And then there's a quiz at the end. You take that, and within about 2 to 3 hours, you're certified, right? And you're supposed to produce a certificate on the first day of your job. And that is what gets you your ID card, and the employer allows you to work in the food business, right? He wanted to take that same concept and put it in India. And luckily, I happened to be in the room at that time where, we were very clear, me and the industry which was present, was very clear that every food handler being certified is not possible in India today because of a variety of reasons: lack of technology, lack of internet, lack of education, lack of enforcement. That wasn't possible. So after a lot of negotiation with him, he finally agreed on one supervisor for every 25 food handlers. But that's the day the whole FOSTAC program was born. After that, a team of people were bought on board in FSSAI. I helped them put together the program, the objectives, the directives of what they should be doing, how they should be doing it. Then training partners were formed and were trained. Then over 1,000 trainers were trained across India. And over the last 1 year, I think over 50,000 people, more than 50,000 people have been trained across India in the FOSTAC program. But the reason I'm telling you that is where the FSS, the food safety supervisor, comes from. So that concept has been around for a long time. But again, nowhere was it mentioned that in the corporate workspace it should be present. So this is the document which talks about that in the corporate workspace, in the corporate cafeteria, where a food is made or served, you need to have a food safety supervisor present, right, who's trained under the FOSTAC program. The next concept they talk about is the health and wellness coordinator, which is the HWC. Now, this is the first time in India this term has been used by FSSAI, and they've made sure that corporates need to have somebody who understands health and wellness and is talking to the employees about it and spreading the word about it, right? So I will spend a little bit more time on FSS and HWC. The Orange Book also introduces the concept of healthy places to work. So, you must have heard about, the top 100 places to work or best places to work. You get awards and things that way. So, healthy places to work is a concept that FSSA has launched, in which you can, once you start applying the principles in this book, you can actually apply to them. They will come and audit you, and they will actually rate you as a healthy place to work. They'll put you up on their website. They'll issue a certificate which you can use for branding and so on and so forth. Right? But that's a little further away. We're still working on the nitty-gritty of the guidelines. Probably about 3-4 months from now, those will also be launched. Right? The Orange Book is actually broken into 3 different sections. The first is the framework for enabling environment, which is meant for administrators. Then is the regulatory and compliance requirements, which is meant for the caterers and food handlers, and a safe and nutritious food tips, which is meant for employees. At this point, I'm going to pause for a second to see if anyone has any questions, because when I'm in full screen, unfortunately, I cannot see if you have any questions. Okay, as of this moment, I'm not seeing any questions. So every couple of slides, I may just stop and make sure that if any questions are, that they get answered. Right? Okay. So moving ahead, the first section, which is the framework for enabling environment for administrators. Now, I think, and this is something that's going to be probably most interesting to all of y'all, because I think y'all would be from admin, facility, EHS backgrounds, people attending this webinar, right? So this is something that you will need to focus on. So what FSI talks about here is, it is your main responsibility to ensure that good hygiene practices are followed, that there is training given to the employees and to the food handlers, and there is awareness that is created around the concept of food safety, and well-being, and that you also carry out activities. This is the first time actually FSSA is talking about activities, because over time they've realized, if it's only something written in the book and the book is in the drawer of the admin, the entire company is never going to learn anything about this. So they are putting the onus of teaching people, and especially through activities, because that's the best way to learn, when you're doing something with your own hands, where there is some involvement of the audience or the participant in it. That's the best learning is there. So they want to ensure that administrators carry out these activities to ensure that people in the organization understand the importance of food safety, nutrition, and well-being. Right? They also want to educate, engage, and empower employees to make better choices. Right? See, many people lead unhealthy lives because they may not know the alternative available. They may not understand what some of what trans fats mean, how does it really impact your health, and so on and so forth. So a quick personal story on how, by the way, education can help and empower humans. Right. So Equinox Labs is a company. We do a lot of nutritional labels, for food products like chips and khakras and biscuits and any kind of food products. You walk into a Nature's Basket, about 80% of things on the shelf you would have done nutrition labeling for. Right. So one day, we're at home. Me and my wife are about to sit to watch a movie. I go inside, I pick up a packet of chips, and I come back out. I'm about to open it, but I happen to look at the nutrition label, and I look at the calorie content and look at the fat content. And I'm looking at it for about 10 seconds, and then I go put it back, and I go get a couple of bananas, and I come and give it to my wife. And my wife was like, "Now do you understand the impact of the work you do?" Right? Because those nutrition labels are something that we work on. We create them for so many companies. We create a lot of education material on it. Because when I saw the calorie content, I realized to burn off those calories, I would have to be on the treadmill for about 4 hours to burn off calories, which I would eat in 3 minutes or 5 minutes, right? So when I became aware of the calories I'm going to consume, I actually made a healthier choice. And stuff like this is exactly what FSSA also wants to do. Is they want to educate employees so they can make healthier choices, and slowly and steadily that will lead to a healthy India, right? And the last thing in section 1 that they talk about is the presence of a food safety supervisor and health and wellness coordinator. Right? Now about the food safety supervisor, right? Like I told you that they need to be trained under the FOSTAC program, right? Now if it's in the catering space, and I think most of you would be in the catering space and not the manufacturing space, the food safety supervisor will have to be trained under the catering training module, right? The catering training module is broken into 2 pieces. The first training available is for basic, and the next available is advanced. So if you're a complete fresher to food safety, you need to do basic. But once you have a little bit more experience, after you've done the basic, you're eligible to also do the advanced module for catering, right? So a food safety supervisor needs to be appointed at your place. That can be your caterer who's doing it. You can ask your caterer to get it done, or what I normally tell corporates is also always have somebody on your own staff, from your admin team, from your EHS team, from your facility team, who's also trained as a food safety supervisor, because it is now a mandatory requirement by FSSAI that if and when they come to your site, you need to have a food safety supervisor present in every single shift. What that means, if you're a 24/7 organization, you need to have 3+ supervisors, irrespective number of people, because if you're running 24/7, and if you have somebody there, somebody comes at 10 o'clock in the morning for inspection, there needs to be a food safety supervisor present. If somebody comes at 6 o'clock in the evening for inspection, there needs to be a food safety supervisor present, and so on and so forth, right? The good thing in this, however, is this can also be outsourced, right? If any of you need any help in that, let me know. I'll let you know how Equinox helps out in that. But you can also ask your vendor to do this, where your vendor can have a food safety supervisor for every 25 food handlers present at your site, right? The food safety supervisor's job is they are in charge of hygiene and sanitary practices at your canteen, at your kitchen, and at your pantry. They are supposed to be the ones training food handlers. So see, we all know in today's day and age, and especially in India, the food handler is someone, if he stays beyond 6 months, at your workplace, you've probably done something right in your last life, that your food handlers are staying for longer than 6 months at your workplace, right? Because 500 rupees more, they're going to jump jobs, suddenly overnight they'll stop coming. So there's a lot of churn in that industry. It's almost as high as the BPO KPO industry, right? That there's so much churn that it's very difficult. Like, you have a guy who's trained, because of which FSS says that you need to have full-time food safety supervisor who's in charge of training new people who are coming, right? Every new person comes in, you can't send them for an external training, because of which the FSS's job is to ensure that those guys get trained. He also needs to keep a record of him training the food handlers, right? He has to also make sure that there is a valid FSI license registration at the premises and at the central kitchen as and when required, and that the place where he's working is complying to all the laws of FSSAI, that FSSAI compliance is met. I'm going to pause here for a second to see if you guys have any questions. 1 second. Okay, a question here. ServSafe certification is going to be mandatory in the future. So ServSafe certification is actually US based, so that is not mandatory. But FOSTAC certification, FSS, the Food Safety Supervisor who's trained under the FOSTAC program, that is mandatory as of now. The way FSSAI is implementing this is they are going to stop issuing new licenses or renew licenses if you don't have food safety supervisor present. 2, if they come to check at this moment at your facility, you need to have a food safety supervisor present. I hope that answers your question. What is the meaning of FOSTAC? It's not FROSTAC. Sorry, I know it's not written on the screen. It's actually FOSTAC. FOSTAC. Y'all can Google FOSTAC and you will get more information on FOSTAC. Equinox Labs, by the way, is India's largest FOSTAC training partner. We train thousands of people every month in catering, in advanced manufacturing, in basic manufacturing, in dairy, and so on and so forth, right? To ensure that those people meet the compliance of FSSAI, but beyond that, they actually land up training the food handlers at their premises to ensure that they understand basics of food safety and that they're complying with the law, right? Do you all have any more questions on this? In case you do, I'll take a pause for about 10 seconds here to see if you have any more questions. All right, we have something in the Q&A. Do we require any license for our cafeteria, as we do not do any cooking, only reheating? If we do basic cooking, which license do we require from our end and from our caterers? Brijesh, that's a brilliant question. And this is something that almost in every webinar or seminar that I presented, this gets asked, because FSSAI till date actually hasn't done a good job in answering that question. So it's an excellent question. So guys, so Brijesh's question is that, hey, I only, at my particular site, there is only reheating done, there is no food that's cooked. Do I need an FSSAI license, or what license do I need? To answer your question, you need to have a FSSAI license. Even if you're only reheating, you need to have an FSSAI license. 2, if you're reheating at your place means it's being cooked somewhere else, you as a corporate need to also have that caterer's central kitchen license where the food is cooked, because that also has to be cooked in a place which is FSSAI licensed, right? So you as a corporate, let's say you have one vendor who's cooking in a central location and serving at your site. means you would have 2 licenses. One, the caterer would have taken the license at the central location. 2, the caterer should also take a license at your location. So the critical point over here is, please do not, you as a company, do not take a license. Your vendor, your caterer has to take a license. Very, very, very critical. The reason is the person who takes the license is the one who's responsible for food safety, right? And if your vendor doesn't take the license, then it is going to be you who's responsible for food safety, right? As a default, as the principal employee. Okay, we have one more question here from Aniket. Is there an education qualification for FSS? Great question, Ankit. No. Luckily, that's a parameter that has been taken out. In the previous version, the first draft, they had said that no, that person has to have certain qualifications and things that way. They need to be a food tech or a microbiologist or food technologist. And what we realized that India doesn't produce enough of those for this to be met. Hence, the qualification requirement for food safety supervisor has been taken out. There is no qualification requirement. We have a question from Chandrakala. We have different caterers serving different cuisines at our cafe. Should each vendor appoint a FSS? That's a great question. I don't think anyone has asked that till now in any of my webinars till now. That's a brilliant question. So technically the answer is yes, each vendor needs to have a supervisor, because each vendor will want that supervisor to take care of their particular people. Like, let's say I have vendor A and vendor B. Vendor A has 10 people and vendor B has 15 people. So if you look logically, one food safety supervisor should suffice. But it's also at the back end, this is more on the legal side, it's per license also that you need to have a food safety supervisor who's there, right? Now this nobody talks about. Only the reason is the law is still young, they're still in the process of implementing this, right? So because of which people will in general say that 1 per 25, but it's also for a particular organization, right? So there are 2 different organizations working within your facility, 2 different caterers. They would each want their own food safety supervisor. But what we normally recommend to corporates is also, as a corporate, you need to have somebody who's trained, so that by chance, let's say the food safety supervisor of vendor A is not there, at least your guy can step in and say, okay, I'm the food safety supervisor. For a very simple reason is the food safety supervisor certificate doesn't carry a name of an organization, it is for an individual, right? So that should suffice and take care of the legal requirement. We have another question from Rajesh. Hi, I have a vendor who serves to 3 of my sites. Is it mandatory to have individual license with Finder 1 license? Okay, Rajesh, that's a great question. So technically, you will require 4 different licenses. 1 license would be his central kitchen license, which you need to have a copy of. 2, he would have to take 3 individual site licenses for each of your site. That would become a total of 4 licenses. Rajesh, does that answer your question? Yes, excellent. All right. Okay, guys. So I'm not guessing any more questions. So I'm moving on. Give me a second. All right. Let's start. Excellent. All right. The FSS is also supposed to address employee food concerns. He's supposed to ensure medical records of food handlers are done, and those records are kept at site. That there is regular testing for the food water that is done. There are regular audits, swab, pest control that is done, and the records of which are kept. In case there's any failure, there is corrective preventive action report that is maintained, and that there is minimal or no food wastage. Now I know the minimal or no food wastage has nothing to do with food safety, but again FSS has actually added that in for a very simple reason is they are also on one side now pushing for no food wastage. They are promoting a new concept where restaurants are supposed to mandatorily donate their food, leftover food at the end of the day to good causes. There's a lot of changes which is happening in the FSF front. Now that has not become mandatory yet. They're still playing with that concept of how that would work. The reason is, they can easily make it mandatory. They don't have a mechanism set up yet to actually get that food collected, because of which they're just in a pilot phase and they're not made it mandatory yet. But where FSS is heading is making sure that India is a no food wastage country, and that if there is excess food that's ever produced, especially live food, that it gets consumed for the right purposes. It doesn't get thrown in a dustbin. It actually goes to somebody who can use it. And there are so many hungry people in the country who go to sleep without a meal. FSSAI, it's going actually beyond the food safety thing in taking that effort. But guess what? The industry is actually supporting it in a very, very large way, because it is for the good of the society. Right? Health and wellness coordinator. This is a new thing that most people haven't heard of before. So FSS, some of you may have heard of before. Health and wellness coordinator is something which is brand new. So the health and wellness coordinator's job is to promote safe, healthy, and nutritious food at the workplace. Now you can have either one person or a team of health and wellness coordinators. Now, like FSS, there is no ratio that has been mentioned here as of now. So you can, in for every 500,000 people, you can have one health and wellness coordinator. Two, the health and wellness coordinator doesn't have to be a full-time resource at your site. It can be a part-time resource. It can be somebody who comes in once in a week or maybe a few hours in a week to do what they're supposed to do, right? So that's a good thing. So it's not a very large burden on you, right? And the next is the way you become a health and wellness coordinator is FSSAI is launching an online training program for health and wellness coordinators where you can consume the content online, take a test online, and you will get a certificate. Now, this is something new. The reason is this is not under the FOSTAC umbrella because see, FOSTAC today has a delivery mechanism set across the country. Health and wellness coordinator, the mechanism is still not set. So they are actually promoted that they do this online, so it becomes easy for people to get trained as a health and wellness coordinator, right? But the challenge here is actually not the test. The content is quite simple. The test is quite simple, so anybody can again become a health and wellness coordinator. But once you become a health and wellness coordinator, you have certain jobs and responsibilities on your shoulder which you need to carry out. So the challenge that I've seen when people are becoming health and wellness coordinator is not the test, but after the test, what they need to do, right? They're like, okay, now I've become a health and wellness coordinator. Now what do I do? Like, okay, I'm supposed to, educate people, but where do I get the content from? Do I have to create it from scratch? And FSS, unfortunately, is not being able to help on this thing because again, different people want to create different kind of content, really personalized, localized, so on and so forth. So we are actually doing something on that front. I'll come to that in just a second, right? But as in health and wellness coordinator, your prime responsibility is to educate employees, to empower your employees so they can make better lifestyle choices, they can make better food choices, right? I hope that is clear. So now again, I know you all will have a few questions that for how many employees we need to have one coordinator. There is no such ratio that has been mentioned by FSSAI. So even a 5,000 people company can have one health and wellness coordinator, but that would, you and I both know, that would become an eyewash where it is not really, then that person is not able to cater to the volume of people who are there. So what we are suggesting people is for every maybe 1,000 or 2,000 people, we can have one health and wellness coordinator, who can create content, who can deliver content, who can make sure that there's some kind of engagement and activities which are carried out at the workspace to ensure that people are actually understanding the impact of food safety, they're understanding the impact of wellness on their lives, right? Last but not the least, one of the other jobs of health and wellness coordinator is to provide and promote healthy food options at the workplace. All right. What that means is FSI talks about making sure that you have items with less oil, you have items with controlled calories, and that be mentioned to the people and that being shown to the people. A quick story that comes to mind is I remember when Fasos, the roll making company, when it was launched, they, for no extra cost, had an option of making the roll into a whole wheat roll instead of a normal roll, a whole wheat roll, which is a healthier option, right? And when they started it, they kept it as a very simple thing, as a no extra cost thing. But now they, I think they charge 10, 15, 20 bucks or whatever more, which is fine. But now people got used to it. There was less feeling of guilt. It was healthier, right? And it was one of the factors of their success is when they offered that option, which I think was brilliant. Now, FSS is also basically talking about this and giving suggestions and ideas on how you can do this as a company. How can you make sure that your employees have healthier options available to eat, that they are educated on what they should be doing in terms of food, in terms of lifestyle, in terms of exercise, and so on and so forth. Right? I'm going to pause here for a second to see if there are any questions. Okay, I already see a question. What is the frequency of food handler test should be renewed? So the food handler test is actually once every 6 months. Every food handler needs to get tested and the reports need to be maintained at site. I hope that answers your question. See, okay, on the chat front, there are a few more. Sorry. All right. A team is volume low from your end. Sumit, are you able to hear me now? Because I think everybody else is kind of sort of able. I mean, I think they can hear me clearly. You may want to turn up the volume at your end. Your voice is cracking so many times. Uh-oh. I have good internet. Now it's better? Oh, great. Excellent. I'm glad that's better now. All right. So there are a few questions over here. Is there any charges for HWC certification charged by FSI? Great question. The answer is no. It's fully and completely free. Yay, all of us can celebrate, right? Because on food safety supervisor, yes, there is a charge, there is a training cost that is there. But on HWC, since it's online and there is no effort that has to be done every single time, we've made sure that there are no charges available. There are no charges. Is it necessary to have an HWC for vendors who provide services to each other? No, HWC is actually meant for you. This is nothing to do with your vendor. This is something to do with you, JLL, as an office space, and you, JLL, also providing facilities for your customers, right? So your end customer would need HWC. You can provide an HWC. We can provide an HWC. A customer can themselves have an employee who's an HWC. But the thing is not, again, having an HWC as a person who's just there, but the person being able to deliver something on a weekly basis and proactively doing something. I hope even that answers your question, right? What does FSSAI say on non-branded food products such as chips and other products? So if it's non-branded, if it doesn't carry a logo of FSSAI, it's actually illegal. You should have a logo of FSSAI and it should be mentioned on the product. It should have, the nutrition label. It should have shelf life. It should have FSSAI license number for the product to be legal, right? What is the full form of FASTAC? Okay, guys, I think the mistake I've made, and I think I'll type it here so all of you all can see it. It actually is FOSTAC, which stands for Food Safety. I'm typing it as we speak. You'll see it in your chat box in a second. Food Safety Training and Certification. Okay. So y'all can see that. That's how it is spelled, FOSPAC, and it stands for Food Safety Training and Certification. All right. I hope that is this thing. Bhupinder, is it still cracking? Guys, all of you, is the voice cracking or is it just for Bhupinder? Because in my tests, I think the sound was. Anyways, there's not much I can do right now, so I hope it's clear. All right, there are a few more questions in the Q&A side. How long do we need to keep the food handler reports? Oh, that's a great question, Yogesh. So typically, we advise our customers to keep the food handler reports for 2 years and then destroy it. There is no legal option by law. I mean, the law doesn't say anything, but this is a good legal practice. 2 years is a good amount of time, right? Is there any checklist for conducting medical examination food handler? Yes, there is a checklist for conducting medical examinations food handlers. It's available on FSSAI's website. In case you want it from me, I will be sharing my email ID at the end. Drop me a one-line email and I'll share that checklist with you, right? I hope that helps. Where can I do my HWC certification? That's a great question. So the HWC certification is going to be available online very, very soon. In about another 2 to 3 weeks, it will be available online and you'll be able to do it online, right? Okay, let me see over here. There are a couple of more questions coming in. Voice is good. Excellent. Thanks, Akshay. Bakery products will not have any brands. How do you consider this? Okay, so I do understand that there will be some bakery products, like if you buy bread or something from a smaller bakery where they will not have a brand on it. But technically, it's not the brand, it's not the name, like it's not the Wibs or the Britannia or whatever the name of the bread is that is required. But if you're buying something which is packaged, you need to make sure that it comes from a company that is an FSSAI license. And if it's a manufactured product like bakery meaning bread which is sealed, right? Now, if it's a brownie that is sold loose, no, live food products do not have any label that is required. But if it's a packaged product, how you define a packaged product, if it's sealed, it's a packaged product. And if it's a packaged product, then the Packaging Act, the packaging guidelines get applied to it, where it needs to carry an FSSAI license number, it needs to have a contact information for the site, it needs to have the veg, non-veg logo, it needs to have a nutrition label, it needs to have shelf life, it needs to have a bunch of other things on it to make sure it complies to the law, right? But bakery product, for example, it's a brownie that is not sealed, it's just sold live on the counter, that doesn't require any of that. Shivakumar, I hope that answers your question. All right, Adarsh, what's the timeline for complete health and wellness coordinator training? So when you said timeline, are you saying by when it should be done? So health and wellness coordinator training is not made mandatory as of now. They've given, I think, time till about December because the online course also is being made as we speak. But many corporates, again, more than the compliance need, they've realized it's something that is required and it's important. They've already started, implementing this at their site. Even if the HWC certification is not there, they've started actually carrying out the activities at their site. But the deadline would be somewhere around December. So, but most forward-thinking companies are already kind of working on it. For FOSTAC, by the way, the deadline is 1st December, right? But it's mandatory now. But after 1st December, your license renewals will all not happen without an FSS present at site. Adarsh, I hope that answers your question. All right. Please provide more details of small items from bakery. So if you are buying a small item from a bakery, for example, you buy a small brownie, which is not packaged, right? It's open on the shelf. The guy, you go and say, I want 2 brownies. He takes out 2 brownies, puts them in a little paper bag and gives it to you. That doesn't require any kind of, what do you call it? It doesn't require any kind of labeling because it's considered live food, right? But now it's a brownie that is packed and kept in a airtight container. That requires, labeling, and it requires a bunch of other certificate. Distinct information on it. JP, I hope that answers your question. The next one is, I would like to ask if there's any specific duration times oil can be used for frying. Oil is, that's a great question. So the question is, how many times can oil be used? So there is no right or wrong answer. The scientific answer is still rancidity sets in. But again, as a layperson, how are you going to know if rancidity sets in? So one way is looking at change in color. Second is seeing if there are any floating particles. Typically, more than 3 or 4 times, after 3 or 4 times, again, that could be wrong because you could be frying in high volume. So in one time may be it, right? But as soon as the oil starts changing color and you have floating particles in it, that's a good time to stop. Right now, if you're a commercial establishment, you can actually buy a rancidity meter. You get a lot of new meters which actually let you know when it's a good time to stop. Nilesh, I hope that answers your question. All right, Atul, do you know if there's any specific certification body which certifies us for food safety and health for better understanding? Yes, Atul, we do. So if you have any questions on the food safety, let me know. I'll share my email at the end. I'll be happy to help you with that. But if you're looking for a certificate like an ISO 22000 certificate, yes, then you need to go to a certifying body which will issue you an ISO 20000 certificate, because now that is a specific standard you're complying to. If it's complying to FSSAI, any food safety expert can help you. We help thousands of companies across India. We'll be happy to do that. There is a couple of more questions on others. Also help us understand a bakery item is prepared in the commissary kitchen. Should it have FSSAI labeling? So it's Adarsh, I think I touched upon it, but let me reconfirm. If anything you manufacture in your commissary or kitchen that you seal in an airtight way, then the packaging law applies. Otherwise, it doesn't. In most corporates, you are doing live catering, so the packaging law doesn't apply. But that being said, FSSAI is actually talking about you mentioning calorie counts on your calorie conscious, or if you have a healthy menu, you mentioning calorie counts is something that FSSAI is suggesting. So I'll touch upon that shortly. How do you cross-check if FSSAI registration number that was printed on snack items? So, Golanji, I think that's a great thing. FSSAI website actually has a way where you can put in the number that you're seeing on a packet, and it will let you know if it's a right number, wrong number, who that number belongs to. So that way you can actually cross-check. Vishali, there are many jail employees whose strong forte is cafeteria management. For such employees, doing FOSTAC HWCs is adding to their knowledge, qualification, health, and qualification, does it help in career enhancement? So, in all fairness, guys, I must tell you that the FOSTAC training is not going to teach you any rocket science, right? It's going to be reaffirming a lot of things you know that you already know, but now government doesn't know how much you know or not. Don't know, right? You could be brilliant guy, but you still have to take your 10 standard exam, you have to take a 12 standard exam, right? You have to appear for exams, because the reason is there is a standard way of finding out how much you know. and that's why it is required. So yes, many people who actually take the fast track training may get 100 on their tests. Some of them feel like, why are you teaching me how to wash my hands, or why are you teaching me about basic temperature control? Of course, I know it, right? I get that. I know, because I'm an expert, but I also had to sit. I'm actually a master trainer, right? But I also had to sit and undergo the master training, because that was the way FSSAI allowed me to be a master trainer. Yes, I mean, they could have looked at my CV and said, "Oh, you already trained 40,000 people. Really, I don't think we should be training you." But they had to do it. The reason is that's how they on paper said that, yes, we have trained Ashwin and this bunch of people, and now we've certified them as master trainers who can go and train other people, right? So, Vishal, to answer your question, I'm not expecting you all to learn anything wow in the fast track training for catering. It would be a refresher course for you. It would be a great place for you to understand the perspective of other companies, right? But don't expect the trainee to teach you any rocket science. But it's a good way to refresh. And two, yes, by the way, it does help your career for a very simple reason. If you're fast track trained, it's something that you can add to your CV. Two, in your next job, they may require somebody who's fast track trained, especially for junior people. See, for very senior people, it doesn't matter. But for junior people, actually, by the way, it does. Right? Vishal, I hope that helps you. All right. But I do believe FSI doesn't have any shelf life chart. So FSI doesn't have any shelf life chart, others. But what FSI does require is, if you have a packaged product, you need to get your shelf life testing done from an FSI lab, so that you have a laboratory report that shows you what your shelf life is, and it's not a guesstimate that you have. Right? I hope that helps. There's one more question. Hi, is the food safety training certification charged or free? So FOSTAT is charged, right, by most people. HWC is going to be free when it is online, right? There is some talk of HWC also being done live in person, which I'm thinking would attract some charge, because obviously there's some effort being done. There's a place there's a trainer, there's food involved, and so on and so forth. So there would be a charge for that. But if it's going to be pure online, then there will be no charge. Right? At one more point, organization shall comply with FSA regulation, also follow organization's internal policy. Yes, that's a great question. So by the way, most companies have been doing a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. They have been doing all of, they've been doing most of it. You all have internal nutritionists, you all have people internally who's looking at, health and wellness and quality of food and so on and so forth. Even before this act came in, after this act, people are going to do it. And most corporates are not doing it because it is the law. Most corporates are doing it because it's the right thing to do, right? We had actually done a survey of, we work with about 10,000 odd sites across India, right? So we had done a survey to find out why people do what they do. And I was expecting law compliance, to be the number one. But to my shock, the answer, the topmost reason was to protect brand, then was to protect people, and number three was compliance. Right, so compliance was actually number three on the list. The highest two was people and brand, and then is that, okay, we're also meeting the law. Great. Even by the way, the law didn't exist, people are still doing testing, right? Which is fantastic, because that larger companies have that. They want to do that for their employees. They can afford to do it for their employees, and they want to have that, as a standard that's set. All right, okay, guys, I'm going to move on. Otherwise, I may not finish all this in time. Okay, give me a second here. All right, so. The health and wellness coordinator is going to help with things like healthy office meetings. So some of the suggestions will be like, hey, instead of serving biscuits, can we serve fruits? Can we serve a healthier alternative than something that is not healthy? They are going to promote health and well-being. They are going to teach people specific exercises, conduct activities. They're going to educate people on. There's a whole section on breastfeeding, maternal health, child health. How do you reduce food wastage? So the HWC actually plays a very vital role, because they start opening up people's eyes to something that they may not have taken the time to see or understand. The health and wellness coordinator's job is actually to empower and engage people. Right? So how do you implement this? The master training is going to be available online, where you can become an HWC. There are multiple, by the way, just by becoming that, and I think I've spoken about this before, that doesn't end there. You have to actually carry out activities, right? So you have to carry out monthly activities to promote healthier choices. You have to carry out games. You have to basically engage your teammates. You have to engage your audience, which is all your teammates, all the employees of the company. Right? So the way Equinox has been helping out is by either an online way or an on-site presence, where our trained SNF executive would come and actually do a lot of the heavy lifting for you, because coming up with new ways of engaging can become quite difficult and quite challenging. right? So there is an online way this can be delivered where you may have an HWC at site, but we provide him all the material and the thoughts and the ideas of what we need to do every week or every month, which makes it a little easier for them to carry this out, right? Now, the reason it's online, again, because it's cheaper, right? Again, if there's anything on-premise, obviously, it's more expensive. Online becomes cheaper or free where possible, right? HWC is supposed to make changes which are changes visible in health and performance of the team and growth of the company. If your team is healthier and happier, they will be able to produce better results, which will help the company, right? The section 2 actually talks about regulatory and compliance requirements. This is especially for canteens and cafeterias. Now, most of this, by the way, we've covered in stuff before, so I'm going to move a little quicker through this. Right? So if you have any questions, please do stop me and ask. Right? When you have a canteen cafeteria, you have to ensure that there's good hygiene and sanitary practices followed on your site and off-site. Off-site is where your vendor is centrally cooking. There, over there, you need to have valid license and registrations at the right places. The location of your cafeteria and the location of the vendors, the central kitchen needs to be in a good place. The layout and facilities need to be there. There will be certain focus on how the material handling is done. How do you handle raw material, cook food wastage? All of that has to be handled properly. How is the food being prepared? How is the food being portioned? The health angle of it also needs to be looked at. What are the processes that are followed for holding food, packaging food, distributing food, serving food? What is happening to your food during transportation? What is the personal hygiene of the people that is being maintained? How are you training those people? Very, very, very critical, by the way, in food safety is training of food handlers. And I'm not talking about FOSTAC, I'm talking about ongoing regular training of food handlers is the most important thing. Because if the guy who's making your food doesn't know what he or she is doing, whatever we're discussing today, whatever we're discussing seminars or conferences or conference rooms is pointless if the guy who's actually preparing your food on a day-to-day basis doesn't understand basics of food safety. And that is, I think, where if somebody, one day they ask me like, how are you improving food safety of India? Now, I could have spoken about all the law changes we have made, all the big plans we've made for the large companies. But my response was, we have trained, 250,000 food handlers across India. And I think that is our biggest contribution to food safety, not what we're doing right now, not the policy level decisions. It is training the food handlers on ground every day, the trainings which are carried out. We empower people to carry out trainings. That, I think, has the largest impact, right? Section 3, I kind of rushed to the last section, so I'm going to take a quick pause over here and see if you guys have any questions. Hold on. Do FSA have any red list of products on place? Others, I'm not clear what do you mean by red list. Are you talking about like a banned list, like what they're not supposed to use? Is that what you're talking about? While you answer, I'll go to the next point. Can you share the PPT with all of us? Yes, you will be getting the PowerPoint. I think we also have a fun quiz with some prizes. I'll talk about that at the end. We always keep things fun. So one of our core values in Equinox is have fun while serving others. So while we teach and while we do all these things, we also make sure there's a fun element to it all. So others said yes. So you're basically talking about a list of banned items. Yes, there is a list of banned items available. In case you wanted, just you can find it on FSA's website or drop me an email at the end. I'll have my team pick it up and send it to you. Right? Is regulatory and compliance schedule for requirements the same? So yes, so Schedule 4 talks about GMP, which is good manufacturing practices, and GHP, good hygiene practices. That covers a lot of the requirement. By the way, that doesn't cover all the requirements, but yes, the basic food safety requirements are covered in Schedule 4. Right? Chandrakala, how is used oil from the kitchen disposed? Oh, that's a great question. Unfortunately, I'm not an expert in that. There are multiple ways to dispose oil. I think there are a lot of companies now that are, people buy the oil and are turning it into fuel, and there's a bunch of things happening on the front. But Chandrakala, I actually don't know the safest way of disposing oil. I don't think pouring it down the drain is the answer, but I think most people will end up doing that. Chandrakala, if you wouldn't mind, drop me a one-liner on this at the end. I will find out the best, most effective legal way of doing it. I think it could also just be pour it down the drain. But let me find, something better for you. I know there's a better answer to that. It's just that I'm right now not equipped for it. All right. Okay. Let me see if there's any questions on the Q&A side. People are converting biodiesel. Yes, I know. So, but I don't know of any known large company doing that. Any of you wanting to start a business in that? I think there's a big potential, because I don't think there's any large organization who's known for that, right? Like no name comes to my mind. I know that a few small companies are doing it, but I don't know how scalable they are, or no name or no brand is coming to mind, right? Okay, so I'm going to move on ahead. We are almost towards the end. All right. Safe and nutritious food tips for employees. So employees should be should have the knowledge of what is healthy, what is not. They should be taught things like basics of food pyramid. What is a complete diet? What is a balanced diet? How do you have a healthy snack? How do you have a healthy lunch? Like even when you're bringing food from home, what kind of things should you bring? If you can't bring food from home and you're in a workplace which doesn't offer a lot of healthy choices, then what can you do? So our nutritionists actually kind of talk our customers through that and help them understand some of that, right? So if you're packing a lunch, heating in a microwave, what are the things that you can do, can't do? How do you decode food labels, right? What are like safe breastfeeding practices? So there's a session that we do for women only around this. It's, by the way, I think one of the most attended one for new moms or to-be moms, right? That, and there's a session on hair, which apparently gets a lot of attention from both male and females, right? I think hair is a problem for everyone. I'm the photo on the front and probably photo on the back. I have a lot more hair now, a lot lesser hair, because that photo is probably 5 years old. But I still continue using that because I still want people to think I have more hair. But I'm losing hair every single day. So I'll probably, if they ever do one in my office, I'll be the first one attending that session on hair care, right? Okay, but jokes apart, the nutritionist also will empower employees with personal hygiene tips. Nothing to do with work. It's actually even to do back home. How do you teach children how to be more hygienic and so on and so forth? How do you manage stress at work? What are small activities, exercises that you can do to relieve body stress? How do you relieve mental stress? So now, as you can see, this is going beyond food safety. This is entering the realm of wellness. And this is the first time any government body has gone outside, above and beyond their realm of focus and actually looking at the overall good, right? And I think that is something that a lot of companies are, praising FSA about. That I think they've done a brilliant job. So, by the way, guys, for many of you who haven't seen the Orange Book, I know Orange Book, we've circulated a lot of our customers the soft copy. If you need a soft copy, I'll also make sure that tomorrow's broadcast that goes out to you along with the PPT, we'll also send you a copy of the Orange Book, right? I'll just make sure that happens. So you guys have a copy of that as well. But and I'll kind of run you through it today after this end. I'll just quickly, we'll have a glance through. So if you have any questions, we can kind of go. So quickly, I'm going to show you what we are doing, because many customers ask like, okay, all this is great. How do we actually carry this out? How can you help? So what we have done is, we have SNF executives at Equinox who help our customers in two ways: online, in which there's no physical presence at site, or we also have online along with on-premise. So we have 3 plans: beginner, advanced, and pro. So the basic ones actually start with things like we can do webinars, which you can then, recordings can be shared with employees, or they can attend the live webinars. We have online health assessments, posters, signages, weekly tips, nutrition facts, wellness articles. So all this is, as you can see, the first 5 are done online, so it's easy to scale these, right? It's very, very easy to scale them. Like whether you do it for 1 person or 1,000 people, the effort is the same. But then comes the more difficult part, which are things like health challenges, like 1 week challenges, 1 month challenges. It's also a good team building activity, by the way. So HR, gets quite happy about the health challenges, because it also is a bonding activity and a little competitive activity within, corporates. It's a fun thing to do. We also carry out corporate wellness workshops. We can do one-on-one counseling, right? Just a quick way of letting you guys know that if you need help in any of this, do reach out. We'd be happy to help. I'm actually going to pause here for questions. Real quick. Okay, I'm seeing questions coming in. Please guide the team on recent regulation on ban of single-time use of plastic using cafes, some alternatives specifically on cling films. I have advised to use food grade, butter paper, other alternatives. Great one. So I know something to do with Orange Book, but I think JP has hit a point which is a national concern right now. And when this, by the way, this law came out, I think we got about like 500 phone calls in 2 to 3 days saying, hey, cling films are bad. What do we do? Right? Like, because we are so used to using plastic. Plastic spoons, plastic cutlery, and even like cling films, that people had a panic, this thing that if suddenly this is taken out, what do we do? So I think the bigger one, the cutlery and all is still not banned yet, I don't know if it is in many places, but the thin films or plastic bags are definitely banned. So on thin films, yes, you can actually use butter paper over others. And over here, I would actually want you guys to suggest things, what you guys are doing, and how about fiber plates? Krishnamurthy, I think fiber plates are great. I just that we've not found a lot of good suppliers for that. So if you find, I think you can share it with us also, and you can share it with the rest of the team, and we'll be happy to let everyone know. Can we get the PPT of this training, which will help give small training to our food vendors? Yes, we can. Definitely, this training PPT will be available tomorrow, right? It would be sent to you in an email, and you'll also get the orange book, so you all can actually take a look at that. If you need any help beyond that, do let me know. Rajesh will share the PPT with me. Yes, thanks, JP. Abdul, where can I get tips for safe breastfeeding best practices? So we will be sharing that in the book. The orange book actually has some of that. Plus, orange book obviously have some of it, but in case you want a more detailed one, we have specialists on board who can help deliver trainings around that. Can be actually a workshop around this that we can carry out. All right. So I answered JP's question. How many hours is cooked food stored for backup? So, Venkat, I'm not clear on how many hours the cooked food can be stored for backup. So, what do you, I mean? Are you asking, like, after food is cooked, how long can you keep it outside? If that is the question, then you can keep it outside for up to 4 hours. So once food is cooked, you can keep it outside for up to 4 hours. Right after that, it needs to be discarded. If it's in the danger zone is between 5 degrees to 60 degrees. If the food is kept, then it is in the danger zone. So it's only 4 hours. But if it's cold, if it's kept below 4 degrees or above 60 degrees, it can be longer. Right? Have micro oven food is healthy, or can we use it healthy heating? So microwave is not, it's not unhealthy, so to say, but see, conventional heating is better. But yes, in today's day and age, when speed is required, microwave is is convenient. There are not a lot of studies that talk about it being unhealthy. So there is no right or wrong answer to that. It's actually more around convenience. But yes, if you have to choose between normal heating food and microwave food, normal heating would, I think I would prefer that, right? Vishali, there is a video of spoons being made from grains. Yes, I saw it a few days ago, and I saw it today again. And I actually reached out to the guy today morning, right? I know the name of the company. I'm actually going to put it here. You guys should check it out. It's called Bakeys. And if I'm not mistaken, sorry, not Bakers, it's bakeys.com. Just Google Bakeys and you should find them. They make edible spoons. The guy is brilliant, husband-wife team doing it, I think in Hyderabad, if I'm not mistaken. Do check them out. They make edible spoons, which I think is pretty cool. Right? Is FSSAI has defined lab analysis parameters for cooked food? Abdul, that's a brilliant question. I have been in talks with FSSAI for the last 10 years to do this, and they still haven't. However, there are best practices that are followed for cooked food. In case you want to know what those are, drop me an email. I'll be happy to cover those and send those across to you. That what are the lab parameters for cooked food, right? JP only available in Hyderabad. Yes. So Bakeys, I know, it's a very small company. Hardly about 9-10 people. So they do have a capacity issue. They probably do have a shipping issue. They do have a long shelf life. So I think about 3 years was the shelf life of the product. But I think it's a very small scale company. I was actually reaching out to them not as a customer, but I actually want to see if I can help them scale, because I think it's a great product with a great future. Right? Yogesh has, I think, butter paper won't serve the purpose of thin film or semi-liquid products. Yes, soggy butter paper. So what do we actually do? So in case of you, I don't think there's a direct replacement for thin film. You have to use covers to cover the product. Butter paper doesn't help in all the cases. In some cases, it may help just to cover it up. But yes, if it's a liquid, semi-liquid food, then yes, it's not going to help you. You're right. So to answer your question, Yogesh, you need to use proper covers with containers with proper airtight covers to prevent any spillage. Right? Would be great if you would share the contact details for further reference. My contact, yes, on my last slide. Sorry, let me actually show you my last slide. Thank you. Email quiz. Okay, so before I go to my last slide, let me just cover this real quick. So we will be sending you a presentation, this presentation in email. And what's not mentioned here, but what we will mention is we will also send you the orange book, right? One of my teammates is on this call. Please make sure, Jaya, that the orange book is also sent out. All right. Two, we will also have a quiz on what you've seen today, and the link of the quiz will be in that email itself. So please do take part in it. We'll also send you the right answers and all that. And there'll be a link for feedback. Do please give us feedback, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, because that's what is going to help us improve what we're doing. All right. So last thing here, I'm going to keep this open. So my email address is mine. My LinkedIn is mine. The phone number is a board number. The query number is not my number. Just letting you know, it is a number where you can actually register your query and you'll get an answer. I used to put my number, but I used to get like 100, 200 calls in the next day or two, which wasn't the best way to handle it. So that's the reason for best way, by the way, to reach out to me is email me. Whether it's a day or two or three, I will come back to you. I do clear my emails. Normally, when I do webinar or series of webinars or seminars, my inbox does get a lot of emails, but I do take the time and I do get each and every one of them. So my email address is ashwin@equinoxlab.com. If you're on LinkedIn, do reach out to me. I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn. Last but not the least, see, as you know, FSSAI is something that is continuously changing. They keep bringing new things in. So we were actually looking at how can we, connect FSSAI and the latest news to our customers. So we played with emails, we played a bunch of things, but what has actually been working the best is WhatsApp, right? So we have this cool innovative thing that we started where it's a free WhatsApp update every Thursday. We started this about 5 months ago, and just to let you know that day before yesterday, our team crossed 10,000 WhatsApp subscribers on our network. That's my marketing team, my TL Jaya, she's on the call right now. Jaya, congratulations. So that it's 10,000 people that we're able to educate every single week through a simple WhatsApp broadcast. And I think that's going very, very well. So by the way, the way you subscribe to it is go to equinoxlab.com/corporate-WhatsApp. Right? Jyoti, yes. So the way you go to it is right here, equinoxlab.com/corporate-WhatsApp. We will also have a link to this in your email tomorrow, right? So click on it. And again, there's no sales message we'll be sending out. Nobody's going to call you and irritate you. It's only on WhatsApp. You can unsubscribe anytime. Just say no or unsubscribe. We'll take you off the list. But by the way, out of I think 10,000 plus people who subscribe, maybe 50 or 60 have probably unsubscribed. But other 10,000 plus people are on, and they love getting the message. We actually get thanks a lot. Can you also send the video? And we keep getting a lot of different things, coming from there, like different requests for different kinds of formats. So we've tested out the message being only in the message. We've tested out the message being delivered as a video, as an image, as a link, so on and so forth. So our team keeps doing new things to make sure that there's variety and that there's interactivity, right? So we are also coming out with people who have Amazon Alexa. We actually have an Alexa skill which gives you a daily update on FSSAI and food safety. Right? We're still in beta testing. We're probably formally going to launch it in the month of August. We'll be the first lab globally to have a Alexa skill which talks about food safety and new things in the testing world and so on and so forth. Right? All right. So Jyoti, I think I answered your question. Thanks, Selva Kumar. Thanks, JP. None of this would be possible without JP's help. I want a big round of applause for JP and his dedication to making this happen. JP, I know none of these sessions will be possible without your help, right? Okay, so there's a question here from Venkat. Should we wipe the plate or should we keep plate in buffet immediately after removing from dishwasher? That's a great question. So if you have a clean wiping cloth, you can wipe the plate. Because if it's immediately going to be used, nobody wants a wet plate. So just from a pure aesthetics perspective, you want a clean plate. And two, if it's fresh from the dishwasher, fresh as in it's a nice hot water which is on it, it is not a food safety hazard at that point in time. But I don't think aesthetically people would like it, right? So yes, you want to wipe it, but yes, please have a dedicated cloth, clean cloth that is dedicated to wiping the plate. Venkatesh, does that answer your question? I hope so. Okay. So there are a few more coming up over here. Oh, is hair considered a foreign object? Yes. Yes, Adarsh, hair is considered a foreign object, and maximum times it belongs to the user. Yes, I do agree with you. But nonetheless, see, when a person gets a fresh plate of food, finding a hair in it is quite disturbing and disgusting. So, as a company, you need to make sure that all your vendors are trained. They have the right protective equipment, protective gear, so that the hair doesn't fall in. Right? Do we have a specific categorization for foreign objects? I don't think the specific categorization per se, but yes, anything small like a hair, stone, anything can be considered. A screw or nut, cockroach can be considered a foreign object. But I don't know how categorization would help. But yes, anything foreign in food which is not supposed to be there, like a small plastic piece or anything, would be considered a foreign object. Is there any item specification as per FSSAI? So, Purna, I'm not clear on what is item specification FSSAI. Can you give me a little bit more clarity? I will come back to it. Krishnamurthy, how about pest control in pantries and kitchens? Yes, very, very important that you carry out weekly or bi-weekly pest control, and more importantly, make sure the record is available at your site, and not the record doesn't walk off with the pest control guy. Because most of the times when I've conducted audits personally, I've seen that the site will be clean, you don't see any pest control issues. But as for record, they're like, oh, the guy who does the pest control has taken it and gone. So from an audit perspective, that's not the best thing to have, right? Rajesh, claps, great job, sir. Thank you. I don't know if it's for me or for JP. By the way, I'm saying thank you on both our behalves. Krishnamurthy, good job. Thank you. Jaya will share link to all deliveries with JP in some time. Excellent. Krishnamurthy, do we need to know when and where this trainings will be conducted? Krishnamurthy, I'm not clear on which trainings you're talking about. So can you give me an idea? Rajendra, can we get the PPT of this training which will help us give food to vendor? Yes. You will be getting this training, this PPT tomorrow morning or maybe earlier than that, along with the link to the quiz, and you'll also be getting the orange book. Things can be done with the vendor, it might not, that things can be done with the vendor, but might not be with the user. Adarsh, I'm not clear. I think you're talking about the foreign particles. I'm not clear on what you wrote at the end. Just email me in case I didn't address your thing fully. Okay. So foreign particles differentiated in categories. So Rajesh, I'm still not clear on what you mean by for foreign particles differentiated in categories. See, in some kinds of food, for example, rice and things, they are also not just called foreign particles, they're also called adulterants, right? So that I know is weird. But in case you have anything specific that affects the corporate workspace, let me know. I'll be happy to address that. Krishnamurthy, you're talking about the HWC. So the HWC training is going to be available online, I think, the next couple of weeks. In case you're interested, by the way, subscribe to the WhatsApp thing. They'll probably send you a link when it's up and running. They'll say, hey, it's up and running. Go click on the link and find out. So I think that will help. The food safety training, by the way, is happening every day across the country. In case I don't know which cities you guys are in. So we conduct regular trainings in Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi, and many places. We also do on-site training, right? Which is specifically at your site. If you're maybe 10, 20, 30 people, it makes sense to actually conduct these trainings on your site. It's just cheaper, faster than you sending 20, 30 people to an external training. It's just cheaper to actually have a trainer come to your facility and deliver it. In case you have any questions about it, drop me an email. I'll be happy to connect you to my training team and we can get that sorted for you, right? Okay, wow. On the Q&A side, we have a bunch of things that came in. Sorry, I didn't see the Q&A side. Okay, so Venkatesh says yes. Ivan says, thanks, Ashwin, great job. Thanks, Ivan, really appreciate it. How many days of food samples can you maintain at site? Oh, wow, that's a brilliant question. I didn't really go deep on the FS, MS side of things. But if you have a way where you keep food samples on site, about 72 hours is a good time to keep them, because any kind of food safety complaints that would come in the first 72 hours. In case you can do it longer, but I don't recommend. 72 hours is more than enough. So do label all the bags with dates, times, vendors, and then after 72 hours, they can be discarded. Discarding that is very simple, because since you're going to keep it in the fridge or the freezer, you can just literally throw it in the dustbin. You don't need to do anything special to discard those. Bhupender, you said so many times about Orange Book. What is it? Oh, wow. Okay, that's great. So Orange Book, by the way, is the document here. Let me open this up. Yes, Orange Book is actually the document by FSSAI, which is the guide on nutritious for safe and nutritious food at the workplace. Right. It is by FSSAI. It's the first edition, which was launched on 15th of May. It was formally inaugurated in sometime in June. Right. It is so. When you go through this, actually read this, which will give you. I mean, I've covered most of it, but again, if you want to go a little deeper, you may want to take a look at this. Right. So Pawan Agarwal, by the way, is the CEO of FSSAI, one of the most dynamic people in the government that I have met till date. Right. These are the list of experts, by the way, who have contributed to this. Here, as you can see, yours truly. So I was one of the first members of this, and then I actually pulled together a few of our customers. For example, British Petroleum, Dr. Ajay Sati, Mr. Laka, then a few people from World Bank, from WHO, and so on and so forth, to make sure that we got a good all-round, so we had a lot of nutritionists who came on board, who gave this a good round, what do you call it, coverage, right? So we not just covered food safety, we also covered wellness, which was, I think, quite important, right? Does that answer your question, Gobinder? So, by the way, guys, I'm going to be sending you this, so do take a look at it. After taking a look, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer any of those. What are the records to be retained at site for pest control apart from MSTS? So, record for pest control, Jyoti, is going to be the fact that you've done pest control, which day, what kind of pest control was done. That needs to be kept at site. Please share a low file size. 35 MB, can we share the link? So yes, JP, what I'll do is I'll actually not give you the 35 MB attachment. I'll actually give you a link which you all can download from, right? Same with the PPT, so just easier for you to download. All right. Can you share the book with us? Yes, Manika, the book will be shared tomorrow morning. Ravi, is the book available online? It is available online. It's a little difficult to find on their website. So what I'm going to do is it's going to be in your inbox tomorrow, along with the PPT that we saw today. I hope that helps. Right? Is food transport vehicle also needs FSL license? Oh, that's a brilliant question, Abdul. So yes, food transport vehicle requires FSL license. There is a separate license for food transport. So if you want more details about it, do let me know. I'll be happy to cover, send you some more information on that. Drop me an email. So I'm keeping this page open so you can see my email over here. And so just drop me an email, any of this, and I will get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. Right? So any place where food is stored, so for example, godowns is covered, vehicles with food transport are covered, distributors are covered, repackers are covered, a place which is serving food even free of cost is covered, so schools are covered. Everything where food is served in any format of food, it touches food in any format, is covered under FSSAI, right? So only exceptions are grains in the hand of a farmer and fish in the hand of the fisherman, as not covered by FSSAI as of now, because this is apparently nature's gift. That's the word I think the CEO used once, right? So that is not covered. But as soon as these guys put this in the mandi, which is how by their food gets to you for many people who don't know. So the mandi is where FSSAI starts, right? So fishermen would go fish, come and drop it or sell it at a mandi. Mandi is where FSSAI licensing starts. That is where the transporting license will start, and so on and so forth. I hope that answers your questions. Guys, I know I speak actually quite fast. I've been told, but apparently I don't know how to slow down. So I'm hoping I've answered a lot of your questions. In case I haven't, please feel free to email me on this email ID here. You can even connect me on LinkedIn and message me there. Right? If it's something a little bit more urgent, you can actually call. You can speak to me or one of my teammates. We'll be happy to help you in either of these numbers. These are not my direct numbers, but you will be able to reach me if you really need to reach me, or you can actually talk to Shubham, who is my team lead for corporates. Right, he's available. This number is actually manned by food safety experts, so they can actually answer your question. They don't need to come to me all the time, right? So, if you have any questions that I couldn't get through, if you have any requests for anything else, drop me an email. I'll be happy to answer. I'm going to now put you guys on pause, have a drink of water. Since I'm not seeing any more questions coming in, I'm going to stay online for another couple of minutes, and then I will sign off. It was great presenting to you guys. We had a great bunch of questions that came. That's why I said, see, that actually, if you saw, the fun out of this whole thing wasn't my presentation, but the questions that I was getting. And that's what I personally love about doing these webinars, seminars, is the answering questions and making sure that everybody learns, from each other. There are best practices being shared. There's so many things that I don't know that I learn every time I present. I learn a thing or two, right? And that's why I love presenting to people, because I land up increasing my general knowledge and my, food tech knowledge also, right? Okay, so I'm going to put myself on mute for next minute. If you have any questions, please do type it in the question Q&A box or the chat box. All right, guys, I'm not seeing any questions coming through. So you will hear back from us. I think by tomorrow you will get a PPT, you will get the PDF file, you will get a link to a quiz, which will, I think, have a fun prize at the end. And you will also get a link for feedback. So do take out 3 or 4 or 5 seconds and give us feedback. It will help us improve, right? Abdul says, wonderful session. Thank you. Thank you, Abdul. Really appreciate it. For every single person who asks me questions, I really appreciate it, because it makes my sessions a lot more fun for me, and I'm hoping it adds value to people who are attending. Right. So today we had a lot of people attending. Great, thank you, JP, for organizing this one more time. A big shout out to JLL for helping us reach more people and educating the industry in what is new. Thanks, Manjunath. All right, guys, I think I'm going to call it a day. I am tired now. My mouth is tired from talking. Thanks, Alvendra. Appreciate it. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off. Wish you guys the very best. I do hope you connect with me on LinkedIn and on email. And by the way, there's so many people over here that I know personally, so many of you that I've met personally. So many people have spoken on the phone but not met, right? So I'm hoping I get a chance to see you guys, right? So this is the photo that I was talking about, by the way. Thanks, Atul. This, lot more hair. Now, not so much. So whenever my team does decide to carry out a session in-house on hair, I would love to attend it. If my in-house team is listening, that's a hint. That carry out more sessions in-house. All right, guys, I think I'm going to call it. Yes, have a beautiful day ahead. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you, Manjunath.